I still remember the chill of that October evening as I drove down the narrow Norfolk lane toward Raynham Hall. The sky was a bruise of deep purples and muted grays, and the wind carried a whisper of secrets that felt almost too deliberate to be mere coincidence. I'd heard stories of a ghost that roamed the ancient manor for years, the Brown Lady of Raynham Hall, and I was determined to see if there was any truth behind the legend. When I finally pulled up to the imposing iron gates, my heart hammered in my chest. The manor loomed ahead, its stone walls cloaked in creeping ivy and steeped in history. Locals spoke of scandal and sorrow, of a woman named Dorothy Walpole whose tragic life had become forever entwined with the fate of the hall. Her ghost, they said, was caught on camera back in 1936, a spectral figure dressed in a brown brocade gown, her eyes dark and empty, as if she carried the weight of 1,000 unspoken regrets. That single, eerie photograph had haunted my thoughts for years. I approached the entrance slowly, almost as if I were trespassing into a place where time itself had forgotten to move on. The old wooden door creaked open at my touch, and I stepped inside. The foyer was dimly lit by a few scattered candles, their light dancing on the worn surfaces of the walls. A musty smell, like old paper and forgotten memories, filled the space. Every step I took echoed in the silence, a constant reminder that I was alone, except, perhaps, for something unseen. A caretaker, a quiet man with tired eyes and a demeanor that spoke of countless unshared stories, greeted me without much fanfare. "Welcome to Raynham Hall," he said simply. His voice was soft, as if he didn't want to disturb the quiet that clung to the place. He led me through a series of corridors and up a grand, sweeping staircase whose steps had borne witness to centuries of whispered confidences and hidden sorrows. I set up my small recording device and camera in a secluded corner of the landing, intent on capturing even the slightest hint of the supernatural. The caretaker excused himself and melted away into the shadows of the ancient hall, leaving me with only my thoughts and the silence that seemed to thicken with every passing minute. Time stretched out, and the only sounds were my own labored breathing and the soft creak of ancient wood. Then, I saw something, an almost imperceptible movement at the top of the staircase. At first, it was just a flicker, a distortion of the darkness that made my skin crawl. I squinted, trying to focus, and slowly a figure emerged, a woman, draped in what appeared to be a flowing brown dress. Her form was hazy at the edges, as though she were made of mist, yet there was a distinct human quality in the way she moved. I couldn't tell if she was real or just a trick of the light, but my heart told me otherwise. I fumbled with my recorder, whispering, "Hello? Is anyone there?" My voice sounded feeble in the vast silence of the hall. The figure, undeterred, began her slow descent down the staircase. Each step she took was measured, graceful, yet imbued with a profound melancholy that seemed to seep into the very air around me. I watched, mesmerized, as she moved closer. There was no sound, no footsteps, no rustling fabric, just a deep, almost unbearable sadness that filled the room. When she passed directly in front of my camera, I caught a glimpse of her face. It was shrouded in shadow, but I could sense her eyes, full of sorrow and regret, silently pleading for something I couldn't quite understand. Drawn by a mix of fear and compassion, I followed her, my feet carrying me without thought. I moved down long, narrow corridors lined with portraits of long-deceased ancestors whose painted eyes seemed to follow my every step. The walls whispered secrets of the past, and I felt as if I were intruding on a private moment of despair. The figure led me to a small, almost forgotten parlor that I hadn't yet explored. In the center of the room, by a large, arched window, sat an antique chair draped with a threadbare cover. The room was eerily still, the only light coming from the moon that filtered through the curtains, casting long, ghostly shadows. And there she was again, seated in that old chair, as if lost in thought. I hesitated at the threshold, not daring to disturb the quiet intimacy of the moment. Then, as if she sensed my presence, the ghostly figure slowly turned her head toward me. I couldn't see her eyes clearly, but in that brief movement I felt a rush of emotions, heartache, longing, and an overwhelming sense of isolation. I stepped forward, my hand outstretched, hoping to bridge the gap between our worlds. My fingers passed through her form as if she were nothing more than a wisp of fog. For a moment, I stood frozen, caught between the desire to comfort her and the fear of the unknown. I found myself consumed by questions. Who was she really? Was she the long-forgotten Dorothy Walpole, shunned and condemned by a cruel fate, or was she simply a shadow of all the sorrow that had seeped into these walls? Images of a young woman, her life marred by scandal and loss, flashed through my mind. I imagined her laughing once, vibrant and full of life, before the bitterness of betrayal and the weight of society's judgment crushed her spirit. As the night deepened, the clock on the grand hall chimed midnight. The sound was heavy and resonant, marking a solemn turning point. The ghost in the parlor rose slowly, moving toward the window once again. The pale moonlight bathed her figure, and for a fleeting moment, she seemed to merge with the night outside. I felt a strange mix of hope and despair, as if she were leaving behind a piece of herself, only to be swallowed by the darkness beyond. After she vanished, the silence returned with a weight that pressed down on my chest. I sat there in the dim glow, still clutching my recorder, unable to tear my eyes away from the empty chair. The encounter left me shaken, as though I had been privy to a secret meant only for those who dared to dream of the past. In the days that followed, I couldn't shake the image of the brown lady from my mind. I scoured local libraries and archives, reading old letters, diary entries, and newspaper clippings that hinted at the tragic life of Dorothy Walpole. It seemed that her story was as much a part of Raynham Hall as the very stone itself, a tale of forbidden love, bitter betrayal, and a life ruined by the relentless judgment of society. Her ghost, they said, was doomed to wander the corridors of the manor, her spirit tethered to the sorrow of a past that would not let go. I spoke with local historians who recalled rumors passed down through generations, each account tinged with a mixture of pity and fear. Many remembered the sight of a woman in a brown dress, her eyes empty yet brimming with unspoken pain, gliding silently through the halls on cold winter nights. These stories, told in hushed tones around crackling fires and over cups of strong tea, painted a picture of a spirit who was not malevolent but eternally mournful, a tragic figure caught between worlds. Every time I closed my eyes, I could see her, a spectral reminder of a time when reputations were everything and a single mistake could condemn a life. In that moment, the manor revealed itself to be more than just an old building, it was a repository of lost dreams and faded hopes. The weight of history seemed to press in from all sides, and I realized that the brown lady was not a ghost to be feared, but a soul to be understood. Her presence lingered long after I left Raynham Hall. Even now, years later, I find myself glancing over my shoulder when walking alone at night, half expecting to catch a glimpse of a woman in a flowing brown gown. The memory of that encounter has become a quiet part of who I am, a blend of awe, sorrow, and the unyielding belief that sometimes, the past refuses to fade away completely. Raynham Hall and its spectral inhabitant taught me that some mysteries are not meant to be solved with cold logic or scientific scrutiny. Instead, they demand an open heart and a willingness to embrace the inexplicable. In a world that values certainty and control, there remains a small, defiant corner where the echoes of the past continue to whisper, reminding us that love, loss, and regret are timeless, and that every stone in an ancient manor might hold a story waiting to be told. The Brown Lady of Raynham Hall is more than a ghost, she is a testament to a bygone era of human frailty, of lives undone by circumstance and sealed by a cruel twist of fate. Her eternal wandering is a quiet lament for all the moments lost to time, a reminder that even in death, there can be beauty, and in sorrow, there can be grace. And while I may never fully understand her story, the brief, heart-stopping encounter I experienced that night will forever bind me to the silent, sorrowful corridors of Raynham Hall, where the past lives on in every whisper and every shadow. I leave you with this. Sometimes, the most haunting stories are not those of malevolent specters, but those of souls who were once human, souls who loved, suffered, and longed for a way to be remembered. And in the flickering candlelight of a forgotten manor, the Brown Lady stands as a gentle, if tragic, reminder of that eternal truth.